to our special segment, Breaking News on Jussie Smollett. We covered the press conference earlier. Our own Aaron Keller has been covering this. Aaron, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you have for us.
Okay, Ashley, bottom line here. Actor Jussie Smollett wanted sympathy and wound up behind jailhouse bars today. That television actor has been under suspicion for a while, and now he's under arrest on charges he paid two men to fake an attack on himself. Today's charges came after a twisted series of events.
This publicity stunt was a scar that Chicago didn't earn and certainly didn't deserve.
With those words, Chicago police announced the arrest of Jussie Smollett. The actor, most famous for his role on the TV series Empire, is accused of disorderly conduct for falsely reporting an attack Smollett says happened to him in Chicago.
This stunt was orchestrated by Smollett because he was dissatisfied with his salary.
The events unfolded after Smollett pleaded for sympathy on national television.
I get threatened all the time. They called me a
Police released this possible image of the two assailants Smollett claimed had thrown a chemical substance on him, used a noose to attack him, and yelled racial and homophobic slurs. But they say the story never made sense.
First, Smollett attempted to gain attention by sending a false letter that relied on racial, homophobic, and political language. When that didn't work, Smollett paid $3,500 to stage this attack and drag Chicago's reputation through the mud in the process.
The evidence includes phone calls between Smollett and the two men who have apparently admitted playing a role in what police are now saying was a fake attack. Police are not accusing them of anything.
I classified them no longer as suspects or persons of interest and as witnesses.
The charges are a fourth-degree felony, and police are left shaking their heads.
Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? Bogus police reports cause real harm.
Bottom line, Jussie Smollett has referred to himself as an activist, and the ire of social media is going berserk this afternoon, including that of President Trump. People saying, obviously, this is not the way to be an activist if those charges stick, if they are true. Smollett himself is due in court in less than half an hour to answer the charges. 20th Century Fox, which produces Empire, says it is weighing its options on how to handle him. This is Aaron Keller reporting in the Law and Crime newsroom.
Aaron, thank you so much for your summary, including actually the police and what their statement was earlier. I have to ask you a quick question. I could talk to you all day long about cases, but tell me, do you think it's a coincidence that the police spoke out and gave a statement a couple of hours prior to a hearing that was already scheduled in this case?
Well, I think that they knew once this arrest ramped up that they were going to have to answer it. And look, the police department wants to send a message. If you report a crime that isn't really a crime, you're detracting our resources away from other things. And I think the police wanted to say that in an eloquent way. Again, these are just accusations. We're going to have to wait for the process to shake out. Ashley?
Thank you so much, Aaron. We'll look forward to seeing you this afternoon on Daily Debrief with more information about this case. Now, what I'd like to do at this time, I'm really excited. We have a special panel of guests today to break this down and talk about Jussie Smollett. I'd like to introduce them to you now so we can have some great discussion. Rob Shooter, thank you so much. Editor-in-Chief of NaughtyGossip.com. Thank you for being here today. And Vincent Hill, criminal investigator, who's on our show as a host and legal analyst. Thank you so much, Vincent, for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon, Ashley.
Hi. So, Rob, let me start with you. First of all, tell me about your entertainment. So in terms of entertainment, is it surprising to you that somebody who can act and is a good actor on a show has now allegedly acted to come up with this false story about what happened to him?
Yeah, it's stunning. I've been hitting the phones all morning, the last week, trying to talk to people that know Jussie well, and today it's silence. A few friends I managed to get on the phone, and they're stunned, they're shocked, they're saddened, they're angry. I think all the feelings we're feeling as a public, maybe fans of his, people that maybe had watched him on Empire, his friends are feeling the same thing. In the entertainment business today, nobody really knows quite what to say about this. I think people are still just shocked.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing for every victim out there of any type of crime, hate crime or otherwise, because now there may be a lack of credibility when they report.
Yeah, I think I mean, that's really the point here, but they're not there yet. His friends are still just stunned. And what I find the most amazing here is a few people I spoke to are still hoping that the other shoe's going to drop. They still don't quite believe it. We have a mugshot. We have a confession, we have a police press conference, and still friends are still saying maybe there's a chance. They're wrong, they're not. This is the truth.
Right, it is something else. So Vincent, let me ask you, here's what I was really impressed by during the conference, and I want your opinion as an expert in investigations. They, to me, started appropriately as he is the victim, Jussie is the victim, but then they followed the evidence, they did a very thorough investigation, and they went where the evidence took them, and the evidence took them to, wait a minute, he's not a victim, he's actually the perpetrator of a crime. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, that's right, Ashley. Of course, anytime someone reports a crime, as an investigator, as an officer of the law, you have to investigate that. But let me touch on something Superintendent Eddie Johnson said. They had questions from the beginning. Now, they couldn't say that back on January 29th, but you and I have talked about this off screen, Ashley. I questioned this attack from the beginning, or this alleged attack, which is now looking to be a hoax, from the beginning for several reasons, the same reason Chicago police questioned it. I mean, it's the day of a polar vortex. It's minus 20 degrees out. You go to Subway at 1:30 in the morning, and these guys that wrote a letter just a few days before happen to track you down in the street at the exact time you're going to Subway. That really never really made sense, actually. And the fact that if you look at the still footage, and I hope the control room can pull that up, when you see that image right there on your screen of just two individuals walking down the street, one was out in the city of Chicago on that night because of the polar vortex, Ashley.
So it's not just your great investigative skills. I'm going to also say this. I say this to people a lot. Trust your gut. Now, let's follow up and listen to some of the police superintendent and what he said during the press conference. Listen to this.
Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? How could someone look at the hatred and suffering associated with that symbol and see an opportunity to manipulate that symbol to further his own public profile? How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face by making these false claims? Bogus police reports cause real harm. They do harm to every legitimate victim who's in need of support by police and investigators, as well as the citizens of this city. Chicago hosts one of the largest pride parades in the world, and we're proud of that as a police department and also as a city. We do not, nor will we ever tolerate hate in our city, whether that hate is based on an individual's sexual orientation, race, or anything else. So I'm offended by what's happened, and I'm also angry. I love the city of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department, warts and all. But this publicity stunt was a scar that Chicago didn't earn and certainly didn't deserve.
Well, if you provoke the ire, you're going to feel the wrath. Okay, tell me, he was angry and offended. Tell me this, were you surprised by what you heard when he made this announcement? Did you think it would be different? Were you surprised?
No, I think this is exactly what needed to be said. He said it well, and I think he said what we were all thinking. People are mad. People are really angry. I don't think it's really sunk in yet. It's still only been a couple of hours as the days go on and the days turn into weeks, and we realise what he did. I think people are going to get even more mad. I don't know any way back for him from this.
And that was one of my questions. Yeah. You're the expert in entertainment, so tell me about the television world. Have they already distanced themselves and said he's not part of our world now?
The show can't continue with him. I don't think the advertisers would tolerate advertising around this show. The show's already been shot. It's shot in Chicago. They're 12 episodes in. So it's going to cost them a fortune to go back and edit him out, but I don't think they have any other choice. Talking about the TV world, though, Everybody wants to sit down with him today. He's the hottest booking for every morning show, every evening show. He sat down, he lied to Robin Roberts. He probably owes her an apology. If I was giving him advice, I would say, you were very quick to sit down to defend yourself. Now you should sit down just as quickly and explain exactly why. Why did you do this? That's the question we all want to know. We know you did it. Now we want to know why.
And that is the question everyone wants to know. And what I wouldn't be surprised is that at some point he comes out with a book, right, and makes money off of the reasons behind the why. But what we do know, he lawyered up. So he has a lawyer. He has a bond hearing today. Vince, and I want to come back to you in terms of the bond hearing and the investigation. Now, you know, in my experience, bond hearings are only about, does he get out of jail or not? Do you think he will? And is there any other aspect of the investigation you think is going to come out through the course of that hearing?
Well, of course, actually, everyone is afforded a bond, right? Now, of course, the judge has to take into consideration any past criminal history. From what I understand in my research, he did lie to police one other time when he was stopped for suspicion of DUI, but I don't know if that was in Chicago and Cook County. So I don't know if that will weigh in on the judge's decision here regarding a bond, but I'm sure he will be bonded out. But to your question about the investigation, listen, the investigation is still going on because you heard the superintendent earlier say there's still search warrants they're executing. Now, they executed over 50 of those search warrants, Ashley. So just think about how many man hours that took to execute 50 search warrants.
Yeah, you know, not only the 50 search warrants, he already testified, too, about all of the information they obtained from those search warrants, the phone records that they went through, so that they could even say during the police conference, hey, listen, we have proof that he spoke to these two gentlemen an hour before the attack, an hour after the attack, and then not only that, while they were in Nigeria. Rob, do you see these two gentlemen, I use the word gentlemen, as victims in this whole conspiracy?
To me, I'm not a lawyer here, but to me they seem to be part of a crime. They seem to be conspirators. They knew what was going on. They did not go forward and tell the police until they were arrested. They didn't stop this. I think they're involved in this. If I was these two gentlemen, I use the word you loosely too, if I was these two gentlemen, I'd be very, very worried as well, although I think we have to be honest here. The focus has to be on Jussie. He seems to be the mastermind of this, but it's also a crime to be involved, even if you were not the one that planned it.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And just to know that they also said there was a total of $4,000, $3,500 paid to these two, $500 to be paid by the defendant in this to the two brothers. So I would agree. I think they're complicit in the crime. We are going to take a short break. We're going to continue with this panel. Fascinating discussion. Come right back on the other side. Welcome back. Law&Crime special segment from 2 to 2:30 today, covering the latest, best information about Jussie Smollett. And I want to bring in our next guest, a body language expert, Janine Driver. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we show clips and have your expert analysis of it, I want to ask you this. Why would he lie? Why could he possibly make up a story about such horrific, horrific crime?
Well, here's the deal. We lie for different reasons. One of the reasons is to get something from it. And when you get a person of power, when they lie, here's the deal. They focus on the rewards, not the consequences. The everyday liar focuses on the consequences. He could go to jail for up to 6, 7, 8 years. He was not focusing on the consequences. When a person of power lies, they have a decrease in cortisol when they lie, increase in positive emotions. That's why he's smiling and laughing it up on Good Morning America with Robert. And they have an increase in cognitive thinking. When one lie doesn't work, they come up with another guess lie in an instant like this. So he was focusing on the rewards, not the consequences, clearly.
And that's so interesting because you're saying exactly what the police chief said in terms of, he said, listen, he did it for personal gain. He did it for his career. He did it so he could have more money from his job. So talk to me about this. I understand perhaps you predicted this last week. What made you predict that he was lying?
Even before they found the two brothers, I did a Facebook Live from my office at 11 o'clock at night saying, hey, this guy's lying. You take all the notorious liars and prove them all together. That's how much deception he was leaking. We saw something as simple as him saying he has respect for people who are victims of domestic, of any type of violence, not domestic violence. And he goes, and now I'm one of those victims. And I'm one of those victims as he slides a smile across his face with enthusiasm. We never saw fear or sadness. When he talks about getting punched, he has his fists low on his lap. Instead of, I got punched in the face, he says, instead of him going, someone came from behind me, he doesn't turn around when talking. We're looking for this behavior to be congruent with attack. Whether you're attacked by a human being, by a bear, by a mountain lion, by a shark, when people talk about the attack, they turn and show us the direction the attack came from. Verbally, we see Jussie saying things like, the attacker came towards me. Well, truthful statements, at that point, he's not an attacker. He's what? He's a man in a mask saying mean things. But he said the attacker came towards me. He said things like, we got in a tussle. We got in a tussle. We, first of all, implies a relationship. Not he punched me in the face and I punched him back in his face. We got in a tussle by the stairs. What's the stairs mean? The stairs indicate to me, I went on live, Facebook Live last Friday saying this was rehearsed. And he said probably to the brothers, beat me up by the stairs because there's a camera over here that will be able to see it all. So the stairs is significant to him, but it's like not significant to us, the listeners, the viewers on the other end. Immediately, I knew the whole thing was staged.
This is unbelievable, fascinating to hear. Let's look at a clip when he was talking to Robert, specifically when he was talking about he's not weak. Let's watch.
That I had said that they were wearing MAGA hats. I never said that. I didn't need to add anything like that. They called me a They called me a There's no which way you cut it. I don't need some MAGA hat as the cherry on top of some racist sundae. I've heard that it was a date gone bad, which I so resent that narrative. I'm not going to go out and get a tuna sandwich and a salad to meet somebody. That's ridiculous. And it's offensive. Yes, there's Grindr. Yes, there's Jacked. Yes, there's all of these things, which I have not been on in years. I can admit that I was on that back in the day. I was single. You know what I'm saying? But I have not been on that in years. But aside from that, it's offensive. And I absolutely resent that narrative because it's bull. It's bull. And it's unfair. It's unfair to the investigation. It's unfair to, I hate this word, but it's unfair to the victim.
Well, I think it's ironic that he continues to say it's offensive when what he has allegedly done is very offensive. So, Janine, let me pull you back in. Some of the things you described, we just saw an example of. But the thing I noticed the most was what you referenced, him smiling. He even continued to smile when he was repeating the alleged homophobic slur that they were using. Yes. Tell me about that.
Listen, it's called duping delight. We see this with notorious murderers. We saw this, as a matter of fact, recently in Colorado with Chris Watts, who murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann, and his 2 young daughters. And we see this duping delight. We see this with really bad liars that think they're getting away with it. So not only is he laughing here, but he does get animated. He gets a little angry. As a matter of fact, there's another clip where he goes, I'm offended that people don't think that Subway is open at 2 in the morning. Sometimes you just need food. He gets more attitude-y about this Subway and what he's eating in his dating life than he did about the actual fight. As a matter of fact, truthful statement has a beginning, then the actual dramatic effect, what was the event itself, and then an after story. So with truthful statements, what we're looking for, Ashley, is about 25 to 30% lead up to the drama. The drama itself, the beating itself, should be 50% of him talking, and then an after story about 20, 25%. Jussie's numbers are way off. His percentage was 42% up front. The actual attack, where he's laughing and smiling and being proud that he's now a victim, is 30% of the story, 28% after. This is typical of someone lying. They'll stack the deck really high up front. This stuff's probably true. He probably did go to Subway, probably did do all these things. And then he slides the lie in as fast as he possibly can. 30% of his story. So the math didn't even add up here. The guy was a liar. Right out of the gate, I came on live and said, liar, liar, liar. It's disheartening. It's sad.
So I know we're limited on time, but I have to show another clip. Thank you to our producers. This clip is of when he gets more emotional that I'm going to want to talk about with the panel.
I'm an advocate. I respect too much the people who I am now one of those people who have been attacked in any way. You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
If the attackers are never found, how will you be able to heal?
I don't let's just hope that they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not go there yet. Let's I was talking to a friend that I said, I just want them to find them. And she said, sweetie, they're not going to find them. And that just made me so angry because, so I'm just going to be left here with this? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to be left here with like, so they get to go free and go about their life and possibly attack someone else.
That's hard for me to watch, and I got to bring you back in, Rob. I mean, listen, an advocate for what? He has tears. What's he crying about? What do you make of this?
I'm stunned. I've seen everything. We've seen so much crazy behavior from celebrities. I've been doing this a really long time. I've never seen anything like this. Robin Roberts believed him. He owes her an apology and everybody today. That interview is going to be as damaging for him, if not more damaging in the long term, than the fake crime. That tape is going to exist forever. I don't see any way for him to come back. It's over.
I absolutely agree with you. So let me bring you back in, Vincent, because here's what I want to ask you. Not only did he make that statement to her during that interview and lie, he also, as you pointed out, lied to the feds. So tell me about what that means for him in terms of any potential federal crimes that he might be charged with.
Right. Let me touch on what Rob just said about that tape, that interview, because in that interview, actually, he said, well, I really didn't get a description, but I saw this, and he pointed towards the eyes and the nose to suggest that they were white. Now, to let you know how you know for a fact he's in on this, because if he did do that and he wasn't involved in this, he would have gone to police and said, listen, they were saying MAGA, which I didn't do that. So not only are you looking at 3 years in prison for filing a false police report, which is a class 4 felony, there's also the federal piece of this, because keep in mind, we now know he sent the letter, which I suspected from day one because it was just too convenient that 3 days later he gets attacked. He sent the letter through the U.S. mail, which is a federal crime, with white powder, which we now know was crushed up aspirin. But if you add a terroristic threat to that, which you can under federal law, you can get up to 25 years in prison, Ashley. So the 3 years is really the least of his worries if the feds decide they want to press charges, Ashley.
So let me ask you, Janine, here's worst case scenario. First of all, this means that them may be questioned differently because of this. And my question is, are we going to have to start using individuals like you who are experts in reading body language to come in and say, okay, here's this person who made a statement. We need to analyze and see if they're really being truthful, because that's my fear if you take this to an extreme.
Well, first of all, I hope not every single person is being questioned about their validity on their story. That's number one. Number two, we should have been doing this already. Quite frankly, it's disappointing for a lot of the celebrities, the one thing, but you get media people, politicians coming out, immediately attacking all the Trump people before you even have all the information. So we have to be careful about, because someone says they're a victim, he's not the first person to do this and he won't be the last. Jodi Arias murdered her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander, slaughtered him, and said she was a battered woman. So the same thing happened, hopefully with time. Battered women, we forget about Jodi Arias, and battered women are taken for the truth of what they're saying behind that. He's just going to be a blip in the radar over the next 5-10 years. Everyone's going to forget about him. People right now, I was just talking to people at the grocery store saying I was coming on your show, and I go, what are you talking about? I go, oh, Jussie, have you heard about him, the Smollett case? They didn't even hear about him. So as famous as he thinks he's going to be, or infamous, he's going to be a blink in the eye. No one's going to remember this guy in 5 years.
Yeah, and I will say, I think it's important to remember, generally there are a few bad apples, but most people, I think, generally can be good people, truthful people, accurately saying what happened to them. So I think it's an extreme, extreme case. We are going to turn now, though, to some more of what the police superintendent shared this morning during his press conference when, again, he was angry, offended, and had a lot to say. Let's listen.
One of the brothers worked on Empire, so they had a relationship and association. So he probably knew that he needed somebody with some bulk, and he knew them. They had a previous relationship, so that's probably the only reason he chose them.
Sir, did you see Jussie's interview on Good Morning America, wherever it was? Good Morning America. Yes. Did you see the interview on ABC?
I didn't see I didn't see the entire thing. I saw a couple of parts of it, and to be quite honest, it's shameful, because it painted this city that we all love and work hard in a negative connotation, you know, to insinuate and to stage a hate crime of that nature when he knew as a celebrity it would get a lot of attention. It's just despicable. You know, it makes you wonder what's going through someone's mind to do something like that. So, yeah, I saw a couple of parts of it, and I was angered by it, to be quite honest.
You heard him raise the exact same question that Rob Shuter, our expert here in entertainment, raised, which is everybody wants to know the why, especially for this to happen in a city like Chicago with a history of the racial tensions and the history of the city. Really awful. The why, Rob, what do you think is going to happen next with him?
Well, I know already a bit of breaking news for you. I know from my sources at ABC, although that clip, the video we saw with Robin Roberts, was only several minutes long, he sat down for over 45 minutes with Robin, so now they've handed over the entire tape. So there's a lot of stuff on those tapes that never aired, and now we're obviously going to look at them in a very different way. That tape is going to haunt him. This guy is really in trouble.
And you can only imagine, I'm assuming that 45 minutes is going to be similar to the few minutes that actually aired because of the story and the way he was telling it.
Yeah, and what might not have seemed controversial 2 days ago, now what might be very telling. I don't know what's on that tape, but they sat there for a long time. Robin didn't go to Chicago for 10 minutes.
Yes.
They sat and they spoke.
Absolutely. So, Janine Shooter, I hope that you'll be able to help analyze and look at if they release or when they release any of that video, any other of his body language. It's been fascinating. Do you have any brief closing remarks in terms of your perception of this man who's appropriately, in my opinion, been charged with this crime?
Yes, every Wednesday night I'm doing a Facebook Live talking about this case and others. And the show is called Celebrity Lie Detector, and it's on Facebook, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And if I was going to have you walk away with one lesson to learn, is when you see shoulder shrugs, when Jussie shrugs, this is uncertainty. So when he's saying something definite, this is what happened, and you see a shrug, whether it's him, whether it's your significant other, a boss, potential employee, your child, a shoulder shrug indicates uncertainty. Simply ask the person, what is it you're not saying? What is it you're uncertain about?
All right, Vincent Hill, investigator, tell us anything else you want to share, any other thoughts you have about where this is going to go next?
Well, listen, I think we all know where it's going, but to Janine's point about when she was at the grocery store, listen, Tuesday I was up in New York on a major network, one of their morning shows. And one of the things I said, if these were white, racist, homophobic people, they wouldn't even know who Jussie Smollett is, because chances are, I can assure you, they are not watching Empire. And you look at the city of Chicago, which is 98% Democrat and liberal, the chances of someone being there doing this in the city of Chicago, slim to none. And the fact that Smollett said if they were black, it would be more believable, well, he's probably right, simply because black-on-black crime does occur in the city of Chicago. But to come up with this story, listen, he owes the entire world an apology, Ashley, everyone, because there are victims of crimes like this every day. Gay, black, white, Jew, Asian, Hispanic, every day there's victims of hate crimes. He owes everyone an apology.
Absolutely. I completely agree that he does. Let's talk about the legal proceedings next. There is a bond hearing today that will be for a court to determine whether or not he gets out of jail on bond, and if so, what the amount of that bond is going to be. The current charges that he faces are a Class 4 felony. He faces 1 to 3 years of jail time, up to $25,000 fine. Now, keep in mind that he could also be charged, as Vincent pointed out, with federal charges. And if that happens, then he's going to have to deal with those in court. So there are a lot more steps for the criminal justice system to act as it is supposed to. We will cover it live first here on Law and Crime. I cannot thank all three of my panelists enough for being here today. It's been fascinating discussion. Love having you all here as the experts. We are going to take a short break, but please come right back for more here on Law and Crime, covering trials and news live.